Welcome to Watch Cozy. Today we're exploring something I think many of us grapple with. Why it's sometimes just so hard to stick to the goals that really matter to us. You know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Choosing the instant distraction over something important, maybe binge watching a show instead of that project.
Yeah, and then regretting it later.
Exactly. And if that sounds like you, well, you're definitely not alone. We're going to try and look at what might be going on sort of under the hood.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is the role of dopamine. It gets called the money of motivation sometimes. It's this brain chemical that basically helps drive us to take action, influences our choices.
Yeah.
It's kind of the fuel.
The fuel, yeah. Our brains sort of spend it
Mhm.
to get us motivated. It's the system nudging our decisions.
Mhm.
But here's where it gets tricky,
Mhm.
especially today
Mm.
in our world. But, constant distractions. This whole system can sometimes get thrown off balance.
Right, which makes it tough to focus long-term and
Yeah.
really easy to just, put off important tasks.
So that leads us to that big question. Why do we sometimes struggle to act on goals we genuinely care about? Things we want to achieve.
It is a really common experience. You find yourself choosing those immediate pleasures over things, deep down are more important for the future.
Like the example I mentioned, binge watching instead of hitting a deadline. Then you're rushing, feeling bad.
And the frustrating part is seeing that same pattern happen again and again.
Yeah.
And a key thing to understand here is that dopamine isn't purely about pleasure itself. Often, after that dopamine hit, we might actually feel a bit empty, which then leads us to seek another hit. What's really driving us, often more powerfully, is the expectation of a reward, that anticipation.
Okay, so it's like the excitement of waiting for something good. Maybe even more exciting than the good thing itself.
Precisely. Think about, say, a gambler. Even after losing, they might keep playing if they have the funds. It's not necessarily the enjoyment of the losing itself, obviously, but that anticipation of a win, that future possibility, keeps them hooked. The imagined reward is the motivator. So that expected feeling can genuinely be stronger than the actual feeling when it arrives.
And our brains are just really good at making those expected feelings seem huge, seem really important.
Oh, absolutely. Our brains are basically wired to amplify these anticipated feelings, pushing us toward whatever we perceive as the reward.
Okay.
Now, there's a bit of a catch. Our brains have this system, a sort of adaptation, where over time we can become less sensitive. We need bigger doses of dopamine to get that same initial feeling. And this is fundamental to how habits, and sometimes problematic patterns or even addictions, can form.
And we're not just talking about substances anymore, are we? Like, this applies more broadly.
Not at all. I mean, we often think of addiction in terms of drugs or alcohol, but this dopamine-driven cycle, it can absolutely apply to activities. Things like shopping, endlessly scrolling online content, even exercise sometimes, and definitely our digital lives, social media, video games.
Wow.
It creates these loops that can be genuinely hard to break out of.
It's almost scary how easily that system can get, sidetracked. Like even a tiny notification buzz on our phone can create that little flicker of expectation, right? Even if we know it's probably nothing important. But that little buzz can totally pull us away from what we were actually trying to focus on.
Exactly that. And when our brains figure out they can get these quick, easy, small hits of dopamine, they become less interested in pursuing the bigger, long-term rewards.
Because those take effort.
Right. They need sustained effort, sustained thought, and constant little bursts of stimulation. These quick hits, they can really make it harder for us to think deeply and maintain focus over time.
So it feels like our brains are just taking the path of least resistance to get that dopamine. Now, the information we looked at also mentioned some specific tricks our brains play. These sounded really familiar when I read them.
Yeah, it's interesting how our minds rationalize putting things off, isn't it? One really common trick is that thought, it's easy to go back to work. Your mind convinces you, I can jump back into that important task anytime, which kind of gives you permission to get distracted now.
Oh, I've definitely used that one. Just 5 minutes on social media.
And then hours disappear.
Yeah.
Totally. What's another one?
Another classic is simply, you can do it later.
The ultimate procrastination line.
It really is the core of it. Your brain just pushes the task into the future, making it feel less urgent right this second.
Makes sense. And then there's the one where our brain tries to, bribe us, the you deserve a break kind of thing. Yes, exactly. The enjoy yourself, have fun tactic. The brain prioritizes that immediate hit of excitement or pleasure over the longer-term satisfaction that comes from actually achieving our goals. And it's really worth reflecting. Do those hours spent scrolling through reels or watching random videos actually provide genuine fulfillment? Or is it more of a fleeting buzz that leaves you feeling a bit empty?
That's a really good distinction, that immediate excitement versus lasting satisfaction. Okay, and the last trick mentioned was FOMO, fear of missing out, which feels very, very current.
It really does. That anxiety we can feel when we disconnect, even for a short while, can be surprisingly strong.
Yeah.
Our brains start nagging us, check for updates, see if anyone commented, how are my stocks doing, whatever it is. This constant urge to stay connected makes deep focus incredibly difficult.
It is.
And the irony is, often when we do check, we realize those fears of missing out were, well, mostly unfounded. Nothing catastrophic happened.
It's like our brains are constantly scanning the social horizon for rewards or threats, even if the threat is just not knowing the latest gossip or news update. Okay, so knowing all this stuff, what can we actually do about it? The material mentioned managing distractions, kind of resensitizing our brains.
Yeah, exactly. The goal is to manage those easy access dopamine hits so our brains become more responsive again to, well, more meaningful rewards that take effort. And there are different ways to approach this.
Okay.
Some people try drastic things like a 48-hour digital detox. But for many of us, a more practical approach is focusing maybe habit by habit.
Right, something more gradual and sustainable
Right.
for daily life. What would be a good first step then?
Well, a really helpful starting point is just to get honest about where your time and attention are actually going right now.
Okay, like an audit.
Kind of. You could try making a simple 2-column list. On one side, maybe the right side, jot down the habits that aren't really essential for your work or your main goals and that tend to suck up, say, more than 30 minutes a day. And on the other side, the left side, list your important tasks, both the urgent stuff and the things that contribute to your bigger long-term goals. The whole idea is just to clearly see the contrast. Where is time going versus where do you want it to go?
Making it visible. That makes sense. And I guess for a lot of us, our phones and social media would probably feature pretty heavily on that time-wasting side.
That's often the case, yes, simply because these platforms are incredibly well designed to be engaging to keep us hooked.
Right.
So once you've identified those time-consuming, less essential habits, the next step is about adjusting how easy they are to get to.
Well,
The goal is basically make it harder to slip into the distracting habits and at the same time make it easier to engage in your important tasks.
make it harder, make it easier.
Yeah.
I like that. Simple concept. Can you give an example? Like, what would that look like in practice?
Sure. Let's say mindless scrolling on social media is your big one. Making it harder could mean things like maybe deleting the apps from your phone's home screen or even deleting them entirely and only checking on a computer.
Which isn't always right there.
Exactly.
Sure.
Or turning off all notifications or setting time limits using app features or even just physically putting your phone in another room when you need to focus. You're adding friction.
Right, barriers.
Yeah. And on the flip side, making it easier to work on that important project. That could mean having all your materials ready and organized the night before, or scheduling specific non-negotiable blocks of time in your calendar just for that task.
Lowering the barrier to entry for the good stuff.
Precisely. You're trying to engineer your environment to support your intentions rather than constantly fighting against it.
That makes a ton of sense. Setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah.
What's another key step or idea?
Another really important area is how you start your day.
The morning.
Yeah. The very beginning of your day can have a surprisingly big impact on your focus and your motivation levels for the rest of the day. Establishing a consistent, sort of positive morning routine can be incredibly helpful in reducing that need for immediate gratification, that dopamine toxicity, as some call it.
So how we wake up and what we do first thing can actually influence our ability to resist distractions later on.
It seems so, yeah.
Are there general pointers for what makes a helpful morning routine? I know it's personal, but...
It definitely varies, but the general principle is to choose activities that promote focus and well-being before you dive into the digital chaos.
Okay.
So instead of immediately grabbing your phone off the nightstand, maybe it involves spending just a few minutes meditating or doing some mindfulness practice, or maybe some light exercise, stretching, even just taking a few moments with the coffee to think about your priorities for the day without screens, or perhaps engaging in a quiet hobby you enjoy for 15 minutes.
Right, something intentional.
Exactly. The key is starting the day with intention, directing your own focus, rather than immediately reacting to whatever notifications or emails have piled up overnight.
That sounds like a really powerful way to feel more in control of your attention right from the get-go.
It really can be. And ultimately, just understanding how dopamine works, how it influences your motivation, and being aware of those common mental tricks your brain uses, that knowledge itself is empowering.
Yeah.
It allows you to sort of step back, observe your own patterns, and then consciously choose to take charge of your focus and work towards what you genuinely find meaningful.
Definitely. It makes you think. Like, what's that one habit you identified earlier, the one that tends to waste the most time?
Mm-hmm.
What's maybe just one small thing, one tiny step you could try today or tomorrow to add a little bit of that friction, to make it just slightly harder to fall into.
Yeah, that's the way to approach it. This whole exploration really just offers a framework, a way to understand your own tendencies better, and then experiment with different strategies to help align your actions with your actual goals.
So, some food for thought there.
Definitely. Something to keep in mind as you navigate your day and make those minute-by-minute choices about where your attention goes.